Hey guys and welcome back to Cinema Wrap Up. Today, I'm going to be explaining a comedy movie from 2014, titled Behaving Badly. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the video. At the beginning of the movie we see a boy named Rick. He leaves his room to see his mom lying unconscious on the couch, and it's revealed that Rick's mom actually tried to self-delete herself. Along with this shocking sight of his mother lying unconscious, he also notices several letters surrounding her. Rick then immediately calls 911 and admits her to the hospital. Shortly after that, Rick learns that the letters were written by Lucy, and it reads Lucy came to know about her best friend Mrs. Bender and Rick's affair. This suggests that Lucy's unsuccessful attempt was probably due to her son having an affair. Then Rick narrates how it all started and we get to look into Rick's flashback. Apparently Rick's mom Lucy is an alcoholic, and she doesn't pay any attention to her kids, and she always talks about getting a divorce from Rick's dad. It's shown that Rick has a sister named Kristen who works at a club. Then we see Rick's dad Joseph, and it appears that both the parents are unattentive and ignorant towards their children who couldn't care less. They also don't pay attention to their children, and are always busy setting up events and parties in their children's absence. We also get to know that Rick likes a girl, who is also his classmate named Nina. Later Rick is seen visiting Jimmy. Jimmy is the owner of the strip club where Rick's sister Kristen works. Jimmy tells Rick to call one of his dancers for him, so to call the dancer. Rick goes to the dancer house and asks one to come along, but the stripper he picks denies coming to the strip club, so she decides to flash Rick her goodies, and for some odd reason he immediately takes off running. Rick arrives at his friend Billy's house, where he's greeted by Billy's mother Ms. Bender, who then sends her son Billy out to get some stuff, to make sure she gets some alone time with Rick. As soon as Billy leaves the house, Ms. Bender starts coming closer to Rick, upon which he gets uncomfortable and shocked, and it's shown that this is how their affair was started. The scene shifts to the next day, where Billy and Rick were seen talking about proposing to Nina. Just as they call dibs, Carlos approaches them and he places a bet with Rick, that if he makes Nina his girlfriend by any chance then he would give him $1,000, but if Rick could not make Nina his girlfriend and failed the mission, then vice versa will occur, and Rick would have to pay Carlos $1,000. After this, Rick sees Saint Lola in the bathroom, which is actually an imaginary friend of Rick's. Saint Lola motivates Rick that he can impress Nina and make her a girlfriend. After a few days of placing a wrong bet with Carlos, Rick finds out that Nina has broken up with her boyfriend Kelvin. After realizing Nina's single and must be desperate to get a new boyfriend, Rick starts feeling that he can finally bag Nina and wife her up. Meanwhile, as they're all in class, their teacher dies while delivering the lecture. This causes chaos in the whole school, and the kids are told to leave the college building. On his way out of school, Rick finally talks to Nina and asks her to accompany him to the funeral of their teacher, just when things are going right between Nina and Rick. Kelvin suddenly approaches Nina and Rick, angrily asking Rick why is he talking to his girlfriend. However, Nina tells Kelvin that Rick asked her to go to the funeral with him, which she's agreed to. Infuriated after hearing this, Kelvin tells Rick that he belongs at a funeral because he's a dead man. The following day, Rick arrives at his teacher's funeral, along with Nina and Billy. Just then, Nina tells Rick that she enjoys Josh Garvin's music, and after hearing this Rick decides to impress Nina, because he also likes Josh Garvin and in fact was also planning to go to his concert tomorrow. Nina gets very happy hearing this, and she asks him with a sweet voice if she can come with him to the concert so they can enjoy it together. Seeing this as a golden opportunity, Rick responds to her with a yes. And while Rick and Nina plan to go see Josh's concert, someone hits their car from behind. On the way out, Rick sees that the father of the church of their town has crashed the bumper of his car into Rick's car trunk. The father then apologizes to Rick, and tells him to get his car repaired. Now that Rick has promised to take Nina to the concert, he immediately goes to see Jimmy and ask him to get tickets for the concert. Jimmy agrees to help him, but before that, Jimmy gets to break the task of getting some drugs from his dealer. After getting the drugs he goes to his mother Ms. Bender and asks her to borrow her car for Rick. Upon hearing Rick's name, Ms. Bender agrees to give him the car. When Rick goes to pick up the car, the following day Ms. Bender asks Rick to take Billy along with him. Rick and Billy meet up with Jimmy to get tickets to the concert, but when they reach there they find out that Jimmy did them dirty, because he didn't buy the concert tickets. Just when Billy and Rick were left clueless and were thinking of alternatives, Nina shows up. Upon Nina's arrival, Billy suddenly spots Rick's dad's car, which was parked in front of them the whole time. When they get near the car, the boys witness Greg's dad and Billy's dad with a girl. Now because Rick's plan to take Nina out to a concert has been suddenly cancelled, he feels embarrassed while apologizing to her, but her being the bigger person, Nina also forgives him. The following day when Rick goes to school, he witnesses a new teacher who had been replaced with the previous departed one. After a short span of teaching, the new teacher mysteriously dies too. Nobody investigates why or how the teacher died. Later that day, Rick gets a call from the mechanic who was servicing his mother's car. The mechanic tells Rick that it'll take another week to fix his car, so he lets Rick drive a very expensive car from his garage. Rick gets very happy when he sees the exotic car, and ends up having a blast with Billy and Nina in the new foreign whip. After a day full of joy riding, the sun begins to set and so does Rick's good luck. At night Rick gets pulled over by the police, and the reason why they pulled him over is they found the dead body of the mechanic in Rick's mom's car back at the service station, and they traced Rick because he was driving the mechanic's car. This creates confusion and causes the police to suspect Rick as the mechanic's murderer. They take Rick to the police station, and keep him under their custody that night. Upon being interrogated, Rick tells the police that he went to the mechanic to get the car repaired on the given command of the town's church's father. Meanwhile, a lawyer comes there who was sent by the father of the church to help Rick at his request. Rick puts all the blame on his dad. Seeing Rick as a careless teenager, the police decide to let him go, and tell Rick to be cautious next time things go upside down. Things suddenly go left when Rick's lawyer unintentionally takes drugs from his car. When Rick was going to drop the lawyer to her home, the lawyer gets high on the drugs and suddenly gets sexually charged. She becomes attracted to Rick and attempts to get close to Rick and tries kissing him. Since Rick is already in love with his boo Nina, he resists the lawyer's lust and does the job of a good citizen and gets the lawyer home safe. After returning home, he finds that his sister Kristen has invited several of her stripper friends to the house. Seeing this, Rick gets an idea and he tells Billy that we will open a strip club here for one night, so that we can earn $1,000 to give to Carlos. Rick takes a moment to tell his side of the story to his sister Kristen and her stripper friends, and ask them to help him, and they all agree to it. Billy also calls his mom Ms. Bender, but Rick doesn't like her, because she always tries to seduce him with her dirty methods. After a short time of arriving, Billy randomly goes out to check something, when Miss Bender makes her moves and forcefully tries to seduce Rick, but he ends up avoiding her the whole time. A short time later, Billy comes back inside, and he sees his mom doing strange things to Rick. Rick notices Billy's strange expressions and asks Billy to take his mom to another room. After this, Rick invites Jimmy to the party, so that he can handle Billy's mom. After the party begins, Billy and Rick start earning very good money right away. After a while, Jimmy arrives, and Rick sends Jimmy to check on Miss Bender. After this, Nina also comes there, because she was worried about Rick after the police chase. Rick then takes Nina to his room where they both come close, and just when they're about to kiss, Ms. Bender shows up, and she senses some love in the air between Rick and Nina, so she purposely ruins their moment by hinting to Nina that Rick was having a secret affair with her. Nina is angered by the situation and she rushes out the room. Immediately seeing her leave, Rick tries to convince her, but things get worse when Nina learns one more thing, which was that Rick had placed a bet with Carlos to impress her and get $1,000 from him in return. She finds this extremely embarrassing and disrespectful, due to which she becomes even angrier. Meanwhile, the police show up because Rick opened a strip club without a legal permit. Here the police start arresting everyone, and with all this, Nina is arrested too, which makes Rick feel extremely ashamed and bad. The following day, when he goes to the police station to meet everyone, he learns that Nina also fell in love with him that night, but now after this incident she doesn't even want to see his face. Feeling sad, Rick gets back home, and upon his arrival, Rick gets a call from his dad who scolds him for saying his name to the police. He's in a lot of trouble because the cops are suspecting him to be the murderer of the mechanic, so whatever was happening in the movie up until now was a flashback, and now we will see the next story. Rick was now in trouble from all sides, so he went to church to confess. There he tells the father about the affair with Ms. Bender. Father starts fighting him because he was also having an affair with Ms. Bender, and this was the least expected factor that had triggered the father of the town's church. After all this, Rick is in the state of mind where he sees nothing ahead. As his mind runs out of ideas, he goes to Miss Bender's. There, he gets into an hour-long conversation with her. He gets agitated yet stays respectful towards Miss Bender, and then makes her promise that she'll never flirt with him ever again. Getting on good terms with Miss Bender makes Rick feel that perhaps he could fix his life back to the way it was. Following that, Rick goes to the hospital to see his mom. Upon reaching his mother, Rick bursts into tears and confesses everything to his mother and seeks guidance, and she for once does her job of being a mother, and tells Rick to get his issues sorted out with everyone one by one. She also tells Rick to admit to his mistakes in order to correct them. After hearing all this, Rick gets motivated and feels like he can get his fallen life back to pieces. After this, Rick goes to the lawyer. He tells her he needs her help to get his friend out of jail. Since Rick does not have the fees to pay the lawyer finds him a part-time job, which is to help her and assist her daily work-related task, and perhaps run little errands for her. The lawyer then goes to the police station and gets his friend bailed out from the jail. Rick goes to the hospital again to pay his mom a visit. There, we come to know that Nina's doing a part-time job there. On the other hand, Rick goes to his mom and finally shows the courage to tell his mother to get divorced from his lousy and no good father. He gives his mom a divorce paper, and tells her to take the steps to free herself from his father's useless existence. On his way out of his mother's room leaving the hospital, Nina chases after him to the main entrance. Nina comes to meet him. Rick first apologizes to her with a pure heart when she approaches him. Rick takes his time to unveil the chaotic life he was going through, and then tells her all about what's in his heart. He tells her that despite causing her a lot of trouble and many disappointments, he could really use one more chance with her in order to make things better again for the two of them. Since Nina also started liking Rick a lot lately, she accepts his genuine apology, and finally confesses her genuine feelings to him in the end, and accepts his proposal, after which they both kiss. And with that, guys, the movie ends here.